Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular council meeting for Tuesday, September the 16th. Before we get started, the Village of Anmore would like to open our meeting by recognizing the many Indigenous peoples of our area, including the following First Nations with communities that are located in the region that we now know as Metro Vancouver. They'd be the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam. Further, we would like to honor the important place in history occupied by the many territorial keepers of these lands and waters around us since time immemorial. I'll call the meeting to order. Could I get someone to move the recommendation to approve the agenda? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, carried unanimously. Public input, matters raised here for council's consideration and should be constructively focused on agenda items only. Anybody, no? Okay. Move on to the minutes of the regular council meeting held on July 22nd, 2025. Could I get someone to move that recommendation? Move. Second. Any discussion on those minutes? No? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Is there any business arising from those minutes? No? Okay. We have a consent agenda. There's only one item on it. Local Government Climate Action Program Survey Report. Could I get someone to move the recommendation? Moved. Seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, we're now going to move on to 9A, Legislative Reports Infill Policy Proposed Amendments. I will be recusing myself as I am involved in an infill application, or will be involved in an infill application, or possibly involved in that, so I will be recusing myself.
I too will recuse myself. We are researching it. No, you stay.
And I will take over as chair, as acting mayor. Excuse me, I'm a little rusty. Okay, so legislative reports, 9A, infill policy proposed amendments, report dated September 12, 2025, from the planner attached. Mr. Boyd or Mr. Joseph?
Thanks, Councillor Wilbrink. Yeah. Closer. So this report outlines proposed changes to the village's official community plan policy RLU 16 in regards to infill development, as well as infill policy number 61. So a little bit of background for the proposed amendments. In May 2025, Council received a review of the current infill OCP policy, which identified several criteria that may unnecessarily restrict eligibility for certain lots. Council directed staff to explore amendments to address these issues, specifically around double frontage lots, slope considerations, panhandle lots, as well as shared driveways. The report before you responds to that direction and represents proposed amendments for Council's consideration. So just for clarity, the OCP policy RLU 16 determines the density and lot eligibility criteria for infill development within the village. The infill policy number 61 describes a set of guidelines to better inform the proposed infill development to ensure it meets the community's expectations. And lastly, the infill zone within the zoning bylaw includes regulations for minimum lot sizes, land uses, building sizes, and setbacks, etc. So policy RLU 16 in the official community plan determines parcel eligibility and establishes a maximum density of 2.04 parcels per acre. The criteria requires that lots not be created through previous comprehensive development plan, be between 3,925 square meters and 8,094 square meters in size, have an average parcel slope equal to or less than 20%, as well as identify a building site also at or below 20% slope. It also requires that the lots not require extension or expansion of any village infrastructure, have a minimum 50-meter frontage on a public highway, and be in existence for at least 10 years. So some of the summary of the proposed amendments include expanding lot size eligibility to certain smaller lots which double front onto two parallel highways, eliminating the requirement for parcels to have an average slope equal to or less than 20%, while still maintaining the requirement to identify a building site with 20% or less average slope. Maintaining the 50-meter frontage requirement for lots, but offer some flexibility for lots that have a 50-meter frontage on a shared driveway access. Include flexibility for infill policy guidelines for panhandle and shared driveway considerations. So I'll just go over some of these proposed amendments. In terms of lot size and double frontage, currently infill applies to only parcels between 1 and 2 acres. The proposed amendments would allow for certain smaller parcels between 0.69 acres, roughly 2,800 meters squared, and 0.9 acres to be considered for infill as long as they double front on 2 parallel roads. So this would allow the creation of 2 roughly 1/3 acre lots consistent with the existing infill zoning regulations. Density would remain at approximately 2 lots per acre for all infills, except for a slightly higher density of these specific lots of 2.69 lots per acre. Minimum frontage requirements per lot would still be maintained to ensure adequate separation between the homes, as well to maintain consistent streetscapes in line with the current policy intentions. 5 lots between Leggett Drive and East Road would be eligible under the proposed bylaw amendment, as shown in pink at the potential infill development map on attachment 2 to the report. Moving on to slopes and buildable area. So at present, the policy requires entire parcels to have an average 20% slope or less. The proposed amendment removes that requirement for the whole parcel, but still retains the requirement to identify a building site with an average slope of 20% or less. So this would allow parcels with steeper portions to be assessed based on area proposed for the development rather than the entire lot. In certain circumstances, for instance, steeper portions of the lot may already be developed and have a single-family home on it, or may not be intended to be developed. So including these lots, 77 additional lots within the OCP hillside designation may be eligible for infill. However, realistically, around maybe 30 of these lots may currently meet the infill zoning minimum lot size or setback requirements due to existing buildings and lot configurations. Panhandle lots, rather than including panhandle provisions directly in the OCP, staff recommend addressing them in the infill policy number 61. So this approach would allow the village to establish detailed guidelines for emergency access, servicing, sightlines, and other considerations. Amendments to the OCP policy number 61 will be required to outline policy guidelines for panhandle lots, consulting with the fire chief to ensure that any included guidelines or access standards are appropriate would also be recommended. So lots would still be required to meet the OCP policy in terms of 50-meter frontage requirements for the parent parcel. This would afford extra sufficient space for safe access and maintaining the semi-rural character of the neighborhood. In terms of shared driveways, the proposed amendment recognized that many properties in Anmore already have shared driveways and is also encouraged on East Road and Sunnyside through OCP policy T15. So allowing infill where a lot has a 50-meter frontage along an adjacent parcel capable of accommodating a shared access driveway could reduce the number of direct driveway connections onto the road, which may improve traffic safety and maintain existing frontage, vegetation, and tree cover. The proposed amendments offer flexibility for the lots that may or may not have a 50-meter highway frontage, or that have a 50-meter frontage onto a highway, but may not be able to meet the 25-meter infill policy guideline due to site constraints resulting from existing lot layouts, building sitting, environmental or topographic challenges. So much like the panhandle lot considerations, additional guidelines would be included in the infill OCP policy number 61. So the current CAC targets for infill subdivision was set to provide desirable amenities for the community and includes the provisions of trails, protections of riparian areas in public ownership, new community space, and municipal hall. With the community hub nearing completion and Spirit Park expansion underway, this may be a suitable time to also review the CAC targets, as well as desirable amenities to ensure they remain aligned with current amenity needs. The current CAC target is $150,000 per lot based on a 2017 study. And just for information, the study recommends that the CAC target be reviewed every 2 to 3 years and not less than every 5 years to reflect real estate market conditions. Alternatively, the report recommends that between updates, the village CAC target be updated annually through indexing them to match consumer price index. So the recommendations on the table tonight is that the report dated September 12th, 2025, entitled Infill Policy Proposed Amendments from the Village Planner, be received for information, and that council directs staff to prepare and report back with amendments to both the Infill Policy number 61 and Official Community Plan Policy RLU 16 regarding the considerations for shared access driveway, panhandle lots, and community amenity contribution targets. Thank you.
Okay, so do I have someone to move the recommendation? Second? And I'll open it up for discussion. Councillor Richardson.
So I completely agree that we should do something with infill and make it more suitable for the rest of the village. I have some concerns, and I should, share them when the report comes back, but I always think it's good to do it up front. Like specifically for the double fronting lots, the idea is that one lot is on the one road and the other lot is on the other road, but it doesn't say that, right? It's kind of assumed. And the reason I bring that up is other than East Road and Leggett, Uplands and Uplands, Hemlock and Magnolia, Charlotte and East Road, Ridge Mountain and North Charlotte also have double fronting lots. And there's an aspect which may be good, it may be bad, where people can play with their infill and perhaps take like a 1 1/3 acre lot and get 4 lots. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but how people can interpret and move the bylaws to their advantage, it should be looked at in great detail, because sometimes, and it's happened in the past, there's unintended consequences that, if you don't go down the right path. So that's one. I have some concern on some of these things, because I seem to remember reading in the Local Government Act, and I may be incorrect, that every lot must have 10% of the perimeter on the road. And I don't think that works in a bunch of these cases, and I don't know if we can overrule that. In here you show, like for the panhandler lot with the shared driveway, you show the shared driveway portion and not the panhandle, and I don't know if I read it correctly. Is the idea that you can also infill the panhandle portion or not?
Yeah, the idea is, in addition, you would still have a 50-meter frontage for the parent parcel, and based on circumstances, a panhandle may be allowed for the subsequent lot,
Okay.
depending on policy guidelines.
Because it would be, at least if I was on the panhandle and the guy in front of me got to do infill and I didn't, and even though he's one behind the other, I would think I would want one behind the other as well. So there's an aspect of fairness, however it may be, that should come into this, and it may be restricted by fire access or something, but that should be covered off. And those are my comments there, and I look forward to the rest of it in the future.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Any other comments? Councillor Trowbridge.
Two of them were exactly the same issue, but when it comes to the two side-by-side down a shared driveway, the side yard setback is 3 meters. Is that consistent with the other infill side lot setbacks?
Yeah, through the chair. So the infill zoning regulation is not being proposed to change. It'll always regulate a 3-meter interior side yard setback, as well as the front and rear yard setbacks will remain the same. So that doesn't change. There will all be that separation between homes and the parcel line.
Okay, so that's still the driver for defining the envelope, and it's still the driver for keeping that separation.
Correct.
Okay.
That's it? Okay, I just have a couple of comments. I just wanted to confirm that if we do look at panhandles and shared driveways, that we're not acquiring infrastructure that we wouldn't normally have. Would there be an easement that they would be required to replace that, like sort of attached to the land title?
Yeah, and similar to certain scenarios that are already in place, we do have easements over shared driveways in certain circumstances, but we're not required to replace kind of what would be considered on private property servicing.
Okay, so there's no financial strain on the village. Okay, and then I guess I had a question about the map that shows all the potential infill lots on the 20% slope. Those all would meet the minimum frontage requirements?
Yeah, so everything in that map kind of already meets the current criteria with the frontage requirement, the lot size requirement, just kind of including within those ranges, minimizing the 20% average for the lot.
Okay.
Yeah, it would include that. Again, that doesn't say that wouldn't speak to say that they would have 20% buildable site. That would happen on a case-by-case basis to determine.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Trowbridge and I were on the. Oh, sorry. You have another question, Councillor Trowbridge? I'll finish that. And these original guidelines came about from discussions between us and a few residents that were on the committee. And I think the prevailing sense of the meeting was that we wanted to maintain the look and feel of the village, the spacing between the houses. And we saw a bit of an advantage to the smaller lots to have smaller houses. I mean, still not going to address affordable housing or anything like that. It did address some optional housing choices for people that don't want a 5,000 or 6,000 square foot house. So I think this is in keeping with that, and I look forward, I'd like to keep this moving forward. Councillor Trowbridge.
Thank you. Yeah. I forgot one of my notes. Relative to panhandles again, I see the comments about safety, but things change in real life, and it's not really a map or a desktop exercise. Do we have a mechanism to have our fire chief out to be certain that because our equipment has gotten bigger, turning radiuses have gotten bigger over the last few years so that they can handle pumping capabilities, et cetera. Can we have some clause that ensures that Chief Sharp or whoever the chief is at the time comes out and sort of provides the blessing on safety for this?
Yeah, it could be either two ways on a case-by-case basis. This could be referred to the fire department, or we have a standardized approach, which is also informed by the fire department on what they would deem acceptable.
I'd also add to the access approach in terms of panhandles and grade and whatnot, that the subdivision control bylaw does talk to that about requirements for driveways, as well as to try and mitigate any health and safety issues that might be created. But sometimes there are some instances where it would be more applicable to have Chief Sharp come and review it as well as. That's it.
Okay, and I want to support Councillor Richardson's comments. I think we need to think ahead with these things about how someone is going to try and take advantage of the policy or ultimately bylaws. So let's get this one right. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried.
Everybody's still here. Place is still standing. Okay, we'll move on to 9B, Anmore Road Naming Bylaw number 721-2025, Ludlow Lane. Mr. Joseph.
Thank you, Mayor Bjorn. So yeah, the purpose of this report is to present council with the Anmore road naming bylaw number 721-2025, Ludlow Lane, to assign the name Ludlow Lane to an existing road in accordance with the community charter. So in 2023, council passed a motion to name an existing unnamed road south of Ludlow property, Ludlow Lane, in memory of Dick Ludlow. While this motion demonstrates council intent, the legislation in effect at the time required that a road naming bylaw be adopted in order to assign a change in the name of the highway. So no corresponding road naming bylaw for Ludlow Lane can be found in the village's records. However, it does appear that the name has been informally incorporated into, over time in subdivision plans as well as village mapping without the required bylaw adoption. So to ensure compliance with the legislative requirements of Section 39 of the Community Charter and to formally recognize the village's council's intent from 2003, staff are bringing forward a road naming bylaw to officially assign the name Ludlow Lane to the unnamed road. The street signs off of the subject road do read Ludlow Lane at the moment. However, the formal street name for properties fronting onto the road is actually Sunnyside Road. This is recorded as such in BC assessment, and formally assigning the road to Ludlow Lane would also eliminate any confusion or potential delays with emergency services and create consistency with village mapping and documentation that continues to refer to the road as Ludlow Lane. The recommendation is that first, second, and third reading be given to Anmore Road naming bylaw number 721, 2025, Ludlow Lane. Thanks.
Could I get someone to move that? Moved, seconded? I think since I've been around here 2000, it's always been referred to as Ludlow Lane, and I actually even looked at some property up there. So this is a good housekeeping and good to finally get it put on and recognize the family. So any other comments? Councillor Richardson.
So just one point of clarification. We're changing the name of the road, but we're also changing the house numbers?
Yeah, so the addressing for those properties would change.
I can clarify the reason why, because existing housing numbers along that roadway, we typically would have odd and even on either side of the roadway. And currently it's only loaded on one side of the roadway, and we've actually run out of numbers in between the residences. So we currently have an A on title, so trying to clear that up.
I was just trying to save a few dollars.
Good. Good. No other comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Joseph. We'll now move on to 9C, the 1000A, 1000B Sugar Mountain Way zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw number 72025. I'm going to recuse myself of this as it's an infill at this current time and that, so I will pass the baton over to Councillor Weber. He's gal. In case it gets on.
I will also recuse myself because of an upcoming infill application.
I just feel better having that in front of me. What's that? Yeah, I won't. Okay, sorry, I just got to get my head around this. Okay, so we have the report dated September 12, 2025 from the planner attached. Mr. Joseph.
Thanks, Councillor Rubbering. So the purpose of this report is to present council with an infill development rezoning application for 1000A and 1000B Sugar Mountain Way. Staff received a rezoning application for 1000A and 1000B Sugar Mountain Way, requesting a change from the RS1 current zoning to the infill development zone. The property consists of two strata lots, each containing a single-family dwelling unit. So rezoning to the infill development would permit de-stratification of the property and subdivision into two half-acre lots, compliant with infill zoning regulations. The subject property is roughly 4,049 square meters within the RS1 zone. In terms of aligning with the village's OCP policy RLU 16 and infill policy number 61, it has not been previously subdivided to create or created through a comprehensive development plan in the past 10 years. The parcel is 1 acre and meets the parcel size requirement. The average slope is less than 20%, determined by a registered surveyor, as well as the building site has been identified to be less than 20%. No expansion of municipal infrastructure is required. The parcels front onto Sugar Mountain Way, which contains all required infrastructure. Minimum of 50-meter frontage on the public highway exists. The property actually has 80.5 meters of road frontage. So the proposed parcel meets all requirements of the OCP infill policy and infill policy number 61 guidelines. 1000A and 1000B consists of two strata lots, again, with limited common property. The current owners intend to dissolve the strata corporation and subdivide into two separate lots. So under the Strata Property Act, a strata plan may be canceled without local government approval, making owners tenants in common on the land. However, to further subdivide the land, the property must be rezoned to infill development to allow for the two half-acre lots. So until the subdivision occurs, the property would remain non-compliant within the infill zone, which permits only one principal building per lot. Once subdivision is complete, the property would be fully compliant with the village zoning bylaws. So the recommendation is that council give first, second, and third reading to Anmore zoning amendment bylaw number 720, 2025.
Okay, do I have someone to move that? Second? I'll open it up for discussion. Any comments? Councillor Richardson.
Just to confirm, because it is a weird lot with currently strated and two buildings, we're not treating it any different than any other infill, including the community contribution, correct?
Correct. All policies are being met.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously.
Okay, we'll now move on to 9D, facility rentals and for social events, policy number 86, report dated September 12th. Ms. Elrug.
Thank you. So this report is an extension of the current facilities rental policy that's in place for units or for meetings. This policy would extend to social events where liquor may be served or where music may be played. So the policy included in the agenda package, which starts on page 82 of the agenda, the policy remains for the most part the same as the current policy. Only the highlighted items on your agenda are the changes. So essentially, those are potentially for council's consideration, extending to 11 p.m. The hosted events, which would then require an update to our noise bylaw. A hosted event would mean that a staff member is present at the start of the event and at the end of the rental period, which just provides a bit more surety and everything's being followed in the event. Additionally, we will take additional damage deposit and have additional insurance, liability insurance in place, and charge a host fee as well. There's also SOCAN and resound fees that are required if music is played, so we will have to sign up for that and facilitate that. But generally, the policy is the same except for those additions. We are also seeking some additional budget. It's hard to determine right now whether that budget will be offset. We'll definitely have to have casual staff in place to host those events, but we may generate enough income to offset that. So we have just asked council to approve a budget of $10,000, which would be funded from our Community Enhancement Fund, which is a reserve for new services that is contributed to through our budget process every year. So the recommendation this evening would be that facility rental for social event policy number 86 be approved, that staff be directed to review and update the smoking control bylaw to reflect current regulations for vaping and cannabis use, that staff be directed to update the noise control bylaw to reflect hours set out in policy 86 for weekend rentals from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., that a budget of $10,000 funded from the Community Enhancement Fund Reserve for new services be approved for standby and on-call staff costs for facility rentals, and that first, second, and third reading be given to Anmore Fees and Charges Bylaw Amendment 723/2025, which would allow staff to charge the additional fees.
Good. Could I get someone to move the recommendation? Moved, seconded. Open up for discussion. Councillor Cryer.
Thank you. I'll just briefly say this is perfect. Great additions, covered everything I think we were concerned with, plus a few more, so thank you. Make sure you let Ms. Perrin know. It's good. Thanks.
Councillor Richardson.
I think it's great. I think we should get people using the hub. I have one clarification. We have weekend rentals, and it's not defined anywhere whether that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or just Friday, Saturday. So I think we should be explicit on that in the policy. And then the $10,000, I'm a little concerned that that $10,000 is only for the weekend users and the late night people. And it's strange that we will fund, the village will fund those activities and we won't fund the other activities like in the general daytime thing, because I think the 10,000 is specifically for the weekend and the extra hour type thing. And I would much prefer that if they're using it on the weekend late and there has to be an extra staff, that the rental people cover that cost. It should be explicitly in there rather than, you know, the revenues may cover the cost. I think the rental users should cover that cost.
Can I just get some clarity from councillors? When you said the weekend rentals should constitute Saturday, Sunday,
No, sorry, Friday, Saturday.
so that's what you're classifying as a
As a
weekend
weekend.
rental is Friday, Saturday?
For the late night, Friday, Saturday, but it's not defined in here.
Yeah.
Right, so it should be either defined as Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday on long weekends, or something along those lines.
Okay.
So it's explicitly understood what it is, because, you know, it should align with pretty much the noise bylaw as it is as well, right? So to me, when I read it, I just found it a little vague on, if I want to do something on a Sunday, is it in or is it out? That's all.
It's all right.
Through the chair, the intent was Friday, Saturday, so we certainly could work that language into the policy, and possibly if council desires, Sunday of a holiday weekend as well, because that sometimes is a popular night for events, so we can certainly make that update. In terms of the cost, the hosted events do, under the fees and charges bylaw amendment, have an additional fee attached to them of $150 as a host fee. So the user would pay the regular rental fee depending on the category that they fit under, and then they would pay an additional $150 as a host fee. So we should recover costs that way. However, you know, we don't want to fall short on other budgets. We do have money allocated. I believe $6,000 was allocated through the other events policy, the meeting events, we called them. So this was put at $10,000 because there is a higher cost. We would, where we're paying standby rates for the other events, on call, if you may. These events would actually be hosted, so there would be a requirement, and we do know that there will be costs for staff to attend in person, whereas the standby rates are lower, if that makes sense.
Good, thank you. Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, so I had a similar concern. I saw the hosted rate of 150, and then I saw the 10,000, and my question would be, did we back into the number of 10,000, or was it just sort of, that's the wrong term, but did we just estimate it from the 150? Are the two linked, or perhaps should they be? Like, should our hosting rate be high enough to recover the 10 grand?
Through the chair, the hosting rate is a fee set, and we've based that hosting rate on what other, you know, like rentals are charging for hosting rates. I think Ms. Martin had her hand raised as well.
Thank you. All of these are great ideas. I think the 10,000, though it seems like a round number, is quite a low number. There could be multiple charges where $150 doesn't quite cover the cost of the taxes or the staffing time, but could also be staff working on the SOCAN licenses. We could allocate some staff time in that way. So I don't think it's a direct pay of the $150 event. So it could affect all events, day and evening events, if that was also the concern. I think generally 10,000 over a year for part-time, extra part-time help is quite low.
Okay, so if I understood, then the 150 is based on market norms. It's competitive.
That's correct.
Okay. I don't want to be uncompetitive. Okay, thanks.
I think to simplify it, is that the 10,000 was a budget amount just to oversee, to put some money towards this for its implementation. Is that correct, or?
Correct. And as Ms. Martin said, in addition to, bums in seats and having folks actually on site, there is other administration associated with the SOCAN fees and other things like that. So, as we move into new services like this one or other ones, we'll continue to assess and set benchmarks and assess at the end of the year whether that amount was appropriate and adjust in the budget for future years accordingly.
I think the key thing is that we actually are opening it up more for more of the community to be able to use the event, as I've been asked on many occasions. So I think it's a great step forward. So any other comments? See none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now move on to 11A, transfer of private storm infrastructure to village ownership. A report dated September 12th from Mr. Boyd. Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff are bringing forward tonight policy in relation to transfer of infrastructure from a private side into village ownership. This is quite unique in most circumstances. Typically, when we have infrastructure installed that the village will accept into our assets, we typically go through the subdivision control bylaw, and there's very stringent requirements to have this. One of the main pieces is having a legal designation that we have access to, and it's installed to the way that we want to install it and whatnot. However, through the years from Anmore and the way of Anmore has progressed as a corporation, there are some assets through the municipality that I'm aware of that actually sit within private lands that serve more than one residence. And so when we typically describe a municipal system, it's in relation to serving more than one single residence. If you have a single residence, it's normally seen as that's the private person's jurisdiction. If something goes wrong, it's up to them, because if they don't convey their own stormwater, it's their issue. So within the village, there are some circumstances that I've been aware of over the years that perhaps the private infrastructure is serving more than one residence. And so one resident in particular has come forward and pointed this out, that we have an infrastructure that they believe they're ours. From the village's perspective, they're not ours because we never receive them through a subdivision or have legal right-of-way over them. So this, for staff, in order to kind of rectify the situation, to be perfectly frank, is bringing a policy forward that's clear and consistent going forward of how we would demonstrate why we would take something into our care, maintain it and operate it to ensure that it is fair and equal, that we don't put an onus onto a private resident to convey stormwater through their property that actually benefits other private residences through the village. So before you, there's a comprehensive policy that lays out each step of how we would go about it, and making sure that the asset is where we want it to be before we take it into our ownership, because we don't want to take on undue duress into our own asset management. So we want to make sure that when we take it on, it's in good condition, it's acceptable to our standards, and we'll then take it on and own and operate it. But again, the main piece is that it's to ensure that it serves more than one resident is the main ethos of this. If you'd like me, I can read the recommendation on the...
Yes, please.
Yep. That council approved policy number 87, transfer of private storm infrastructure to village ownership policy as presented.
Could I get someone to move the recommendation? Moved, seconded. I'll open up for discussion. Councilor Weber.
I'm glad to see this addressed. I know in our neighborhood this situation exists, and I know behind me, when those two lots were subdivided, there was a storm pipe put in, but I was never clear on who was supposed to maintain that. So I haven't connected to it yet, but I'm able to. So if I know that the village is going to take over the maintenance, then I'm a little bit more comfortable with that. So this is one of these legacy things from the old Anmore that nobody really thought about it, and I'm glad to see this cleaned up.
Good. Councilor Trowbridge.
Yeah, there are thankfully not a huge number, but there are a few of these situations in the village. And I guess I read everything you said relative to identifying what would be inherited infrastructure if we put in a statutory right of way. But I guess, can you provide any sort of granularity in terms of a situation where we have a pipe collecting water from 2 or 3 places, whatever, doesn't matter the number, and running through private property, which then has some relationship with private drain tile, et cetera, et cetera? How do we identify what belongs to the village and we don't end up being unfair to other residences by servicing someone's, what should be their private drainage?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, we'd have to review this on a bit of a case-by-case process, depending on how the infrastructure is and how things are attached. But typically, we'd be looking for a demarcation mark, which typically in our subdivision control bylaw is what we call an inspection chamber. So if you've got an inspection chamber to the left, it's our infrastructure, to the right, it's the private residence. So we have a clear delineation of whose is whose in that circumstance. And typically we're looking just for one connection from a private residence onto infrastructure. However, in this case, there might be a couple because it's from the old Anmore way of doing things. So sometimes we do find there's more than one connection, which if that was the case, I think what we'd be looking for is perhaps installing 2 ICs, inspection chambers, to create that clear delineation between municipal, private side.
So if I understood what you said, then it'd be a physical demarcation that would be in place forevermore, and anyone coming to the site would be able to recognize this is us, this is someone else.
Yeah, correct. That's typically how we like to do it. It's a physical kind of steel cover on it, typically. It can be plastic boxes, it can be other things, depending on it, that there's a physical thing that it's there, it's registered, we know exactly where it is. So as staff, if we're coming to operate it, maintain it, we know exactly where it is, what is ours and what is not. So if something goes wrong, there's then a clear pathway to who's fixing it and who's not fixing it.
Good. Councillor Richardson.
So, I'm going to say 6 months ago, there was a fella in here that had drainage issues. Does this resolve that particular guy and his situation? Or does it resolve it just the fact that, he only serves his own lot, so therefore this doesn't apply? I appreciate the clarity. I actually think it's a good thing, but I'm trying to determine what gets resolved and what doesn't.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I would say it now allows us a pathway to resolve this. Because currently, as a staff member, my position is this isn't our infrastructure, right? So if there was a problem with it, I would be saying it's not my infrastructure currently. This isn't on our books. We don't have any legal right-of-ways. It's not ours. So what I'd say is it allows us to now do our due diligence to ensure if there is something wrong with it, that we can ensure that it's taken care of and make sure that then it's fixed or however we want to go about it.
Okay, so that's true if it's already in place. The burden on the homeowner or the group of homeowners that have that facility is they bring it up to current standard. That can be a very expensive proposition, can it not? It's tens of $20,000. I think that's my recollection when I did mine.
100%, Councillor Richardson. I think it's an important clarification that we are looking to have this up to a certain standard for us to receive it and maintain and operate it. Now, again, it's an important part of the policy that this is in front of council to determine, because that if you wanted to take on this infrastructure from a fairness perspective of, hey, this should have been ours in the first place, it's on us, we should upgrade it, then we should amend the policy here, because we would be spending municipal dollars to upgrade this system.
Policy specifically says we only take it if it's to our standard today. So whatever was built 35 years ago is not to our standard today. So there is going to be a burden on homeowners.
Possibly would be my answer to that. Maybe, without doing the due diligence on it to see what state it's in.
Good. Okay, I don't see any questions. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Boyd. We'll move on to committee mayor's report. I've got a few things here in the mayor's report. I wanted to start off with back in, I guess it was back in late May, myself and Ms. Elrick met with the Lower Mainland District Commander of the RCMP, Assistant Commissioner Brian Edwards. And we discussed, we actually got in, it was a yearly meeting regarding policing, and so we actually had some discussions about what the cost of policing currently is. So the current, in 2025, Anmore contributes $313,255 in taxes for policing costs, and that's via a grant system through the province due, and it's all based on our population. So that again is $313,255, or works out to about $125 a person in Anmore that the police cover. So we asked him in regards to, because there was a lot of rumors and a lot of false information going on about what would happen if our population were to hit 5,000 residents. He clearly stated that our service level would greatly increase with not much of a difference of a cost per resident. So he said the best analogy you could use would be to use Oliver, which just went over it actually has a population of 5,320. They currently pay about $617,716 or $116 per person. And why this is important is a couple reasons. There was an example used that, to compare us to a Soyuz. As he said, that's clearly apples and oranges because a Soyuz is a border detachment and therefore has quite a bit extenuating costs in regards to border protection. So currently, we have a municipal police unit agreement, an MPUA, with an existing detachment, which is Coquitlam, or basically Anmore's current policing model is basically just a very basic bare bone model. To get to 5,000, we would be then Anmore Council would specifically be directed to align with the strategic priorities of Anmore. So Council would meet with the police and actually outline strategic priorities in Anmore. Those could be speeding, they could be break and enters or whatever. We also have, just going through my thing here, currently the RCMP actually, which I didn't realize, uses our fire hall as an operation center within Anmore at no charge. So Council would be able to set these strategic goals, provide objectives related specifically to Anmore for a force of about 6 people, which is not available under Anmore's current policy memo because the territory is so vast. Issues of importance to Anmore would be addressed through areas of focus or service. Savings in terms of building staff, etc., would do integration of Coquitlam, resources, IHIT, and all these other facilities would be there. So I just wanted to kind of put that out, that if you take the best comparison, which he said, or he also used Peachland, but Oliver at 5320, it would work out to $617,716, or about $116 per person. So it actually, per person, would be actually cheaper than what we're currently paying, and our service level, he said, would increase at least 6-fold because we'd be able to set the goals and the stipulations of what we required as a municipality. So I just wanted to kind of, it was an really interesting conversation. I never got really to get that out to, which were the facts of what he presented. Wanted to also tell you about, on policing, the other night I had an interesting conversation with our constable who was here about the motorbiking. He was in a bit of a covert stakeout looking for the motorbiking people on one of the neighboring streets. He said there's been many occasions where they have chased and haven't been able to catch. So I've heard rumors that there was one was caught over the weekend in that, but there seems to be still more going around. But I can tell you that they are working, taking this with a very high sense of urgency, and they're also working with Port Moody Police as well. So to be able to get to the bottom of this and stop this before somebody gets very, very badly hurt. Montmary Day, this last Sunday. Big thank you to staff and the volunteers for a hugely successful day. Even with the weather, it was amazing to see all of the kids and everybody participating in everything. And we had two big gerbil balls in here at one point in this room, and it was very, very popular. And it was great to see everybody, and even the traditional cantaloupe or watermelon eating contest was a huge success and really, really great time. This Thursday, I'll be attending the Mayor's Barbecue sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. Next week, I'll be in Victoria, participating in some of UBCM from my role in Metro Vancouver. I just wanted to let you know as well, September 11th, we had a Sassafras Fire Trustee meeting. More will be coming out on this. Again, there's an urgency. About 9 years ago, both our fire halls, the one in Anmore and Beaucara, were deemed that they needed to be replaced through an assessment. They're not seismic. There's a bunch of issues with them, WCB. So we are working, this council and our trustees, which consists of myself, Councillor Trowbridge and Councillor Wevering, are working vigorously to get shovels in the ground and get something moving on this. We're also working in the background as to some sort of a temporary facility to be able to facilitate the fire hall while it's out of operation and while the construction's going on. There are some schematics or some online, I believe. Have we got them posted on our website in regards to the Sassmet Volunteer Fire Department from Legacy?
If they were part of an agenda,
Yeah,
we do
yeah,
have the
they were.
agendas
Yeah,
posted
okay.
online, yes.
So good to keep up with that. And then the last thing I just wanted to comment, and we got a copy of the Ombudsman's report. It gets sent to me on a I think it's I guess it's a quarterly basis, January 1st, March 31st, 2025, and there is no complaints. There was one complaint, but the investigation wasn't warranted. So. And that's, I believe these are public documents, the Ombudsman's report. That's all I have for the Mayor's report. Councillor's report. Councillor Weber.
Yeah, some of the same stuff. I attended Murray Day. Always enjoyed that. I think the weather dampened it a little bit, but it was still a pretty good turnout. UBCM next week, and an Environment Committee meeting coming up this Thursday. So if anybody has nothing to do, please attend. And I also wanted to make a sad announcement, the passing of one of my neighbors, Wade McLeod, on Birchwind. Young guy, young family. My condolences to his family. It's a real tragedy when, it shakes a community when you hear things like that. A young guy, you think you've got it bad, and then you think what he went through. So my condolences to his family. Very sad. And that's all I have.
Yeah, I wanted to share that as well. I met Wade and went for coffee with him. I guess it would have been 4 years ago. He had expressed an interest in getting involved in the municipality and council, wanted to get involved in a committee, and had an amazing coffee with him, heard his story in regards to being, an athlete, which I could really relate to. And it's when I heard the news on Saturday, I was pretty devastated. So, and condolences to the family. Councillor Trowbridge.
Thank you. Yeah, I attended Murray Day as well. It's not as bad as the weather we've had some years, but the rain held off a bit. We had our first Parks and Rec meeting about a week ago today, actually, or Monday, I can't recall, but last week. And all new members except for Susan Mukel, and it was a really good, fulsome discussion, I think. Essen was there, that's why she's nodding, and she was recording everything. We have a lot of enthusiasm on the committee, so I'm hopeful we're going to bring some good ideas to the table, and hopefully we can execute some of them. Thanks.
I forgot to just mention one thing. Sorry, I couldn't read my notes, but for those of you that were at Murray Day, a band came on to play, and the lead singer was 13 years old, the drummer was 11 years old, and they were absolutely fantastic. So I don't know if any of you saw them in that, but I know Councillor Weber and I just stood back and go, holy crow, what were you doing when you were 13? So anyway, Councillor Cryer.
Thank you. Some repeat, Murray Day, very successful. Thank you to staff and volunteers. I too had my first committee meeting last night. Seems a long time ago. It went very well. We had our orientation. We have a couple of new faces. I am very pleased to report, thanks to Ms. Essen, we have a very solid accessibility plan which will satisfy the new legislation. The policy, we clarified some verbiage, we put together our goals and objectives, and once the plan is final, we'll present it to everyone, and that then will allow us to put in for funding for some of our goals. We'll dig into those one by one. So we'll be talking about that in the next month or so. Also, Mayor's Barbecue, you are not just attending, you're the talent, along with the other 4 mayors. I think they're all attending. I attended the Eagle Ridge Hospital Foundation Gala on Saturday night. I too will be at UBCM in Victoria next week, and I hope everyone had a good summer. That's it.
Councillor Richardson, do you have anything? Or?
I echo again, Montgomery Day was very much fun. Greatly appreciate staff and all the resident volunteers that put it on. That's great. This is going to be a slight twist. And an Anmore resident, or former Anmore resident, Guinness, who is the black poodle who disappeared up into the woods in that atmospheric river, passed away a week ago. And the SPCA has a campaign in order to raise funds. And Guinness will be put on the can if enough people contribute. So I'm all for getting an Anmore Pass dog on the can that is produced by a local brewery. So you can look it up on the SPCA and you get a tax receipt and everything else. So it's to me at least, it's worthwhile. Cheers.
Good, thanks. Chief Administrator's report, Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. So just a reminder to folks that our ditching is currently underway this last week and will be continuing for the next 2 weeks. So please be mindful of the crew and flaggers out on the roads. Additionally, as most of council shared, this week and last week, staff have been meeting along with the chairs of each committee with all of our council committees, continuing tomorrow night and Thursday night, as well as our advisory planning commission. So great to re-engage with those groups, and from all reports, it sounds like there was lots of great input and comments came out of those meetings, so really happy to hear that. And lastly, I just wanted to take the opportunity to address some misinformation that's been circulating throughout the village that's causing some confusion related to Bill 44 legislation. So Bill 44 was introduced and included multiple measures by the provincial government to essentially increase housing availability. So there's several components to the legislation. One component to the legislation is what's commonly referred to as the SMU regulations, and that's the small-scale multi-housing units, multi-housing housing units. Under that component, there are some criteria regarding to being an under 5,000 threshold and being outside of the urban containment boundary, that there are some nuances in how that piece of legislation applies directly to the village of Anmore. One of the other components is a proactive planning component, and what's included in that proactive planning component is new criteria and requirements related to public hearings. So that precipitated a change to the Local Government Act, which Anmore does need to comply with that piece of legislation. So in relation to the Pinnacle application, which meets the criteria that is under the legislation, in that it's been deemed to be consistent with our OCP, among other criteria, the legislation does state that the village must not hold a public hearing related to this application. Notice was given prior to the first reading in accordance with the legislation. You know, when new legislation is rolled out, staff does work directly with ministry staff There's workshops we attend. If we need clarification, we do reach out directly to ministry staff who are the subject matter experts on new pieces of legislation, and we'll continue to do that. But I just wanted to make sure that that clarity was provided, because there have been a few questions that have come in through staff regarding that. Thank you.
Good. Thanks. Do you have any information items? Open up for public question period. Public's permitted to ask question to council regarding items pertaining to village business. 2-minute time limit applies to speakers. Anybody? If you could just state your name and address first, please. I think you should, yeah, it's on.
It's not hot. Thank you. Jody Cook, 1660 East Road. My question, or two questions tonight, is about the proposed Pinnacle Ridge. It will be a few questions or concerns about that, mostly the steep slope. Our property is going to butt right up to the back of the development. Now, I understand there is some green space between us and the development. I'm assuming that if something is deemed green space, that they're not clear cutting that property. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. The other question is, I know that in 2008, the other Pinnacle Ridge, the first one, when they clear cut, the water came down, flooded East Road, and I believe parts of Thompson. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that nobody took responsibility for that. So my question is to council, if when they clear cut, because our property is a steep slope, our residence is at the bottom of the property, if it were to ruin our yard, flood our house, who would be liable for this?
I just want to clarify a point about the washout.
Okay.
The washout, in essence, was caused, and I know Chris will confirm this, but what happened is that the site went into bankruptcy, and a lot of the drainage works was not completed. And at the time, one of the, as I recall, because it was about 18 years ago when I first got on council, one of the contractors was there taking up pipes just to be able to recapture some of his loss, and was actually literally digging up pipes and that at the time. And that's what really caused, and then we had the heavy rain so that none of the infrastructure was in place. But that's what happened at the time. But I will pass it over to Chris in regards to preventive. You're looking at what sort of preventive measures?
And for instance, if it were to cascade down our property, who would be responsible for that? Obviously, it would not be us. Would we be covered for any damages? And would that be developer? Would that be village? Who would that be?
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Chair. Under the procedure bylaw, we won't be able to talk about this.
We can't talk about this. I'm sorry.
I couldn't hear that, sorry.
I'm sorry. Apparently, we're not allowed to talk about it under the procedure bylaw. I can't answer your question. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, you can't talk about it because of a bylaw? So you can't tell me if the development were to flood when they clear cut down our property or any of the other properties adjacent to me, you can't tell me who would be responsible for that? Council are the ones that are going to be putting this, approving of this development. So somebody has to be able to tell the citizens who would be responsible for this. It's very concerning that I can't even get an answer to this.
I do understand your concern. Unfortunately, the procedure bylaw prohibits the council discuss this at this time.
Okay, is this something that I can ask council to look into before this is approved and get back to the citizens? I mean, I think we have the right to that.
Well, I can tell you that this has not been approved.
No,
first of
I'm
all.
saying,
Yeah.
no, I understand that, but this is my concern, is that I wanted to voice my opinion now before, or if and when it is approved.
Ms. Selmer?
If you do have specific questions related to the Pinnacle application, please email off to staff. and they can assist you. You can email thevillage.hall@anmore.com, and they may be able to help you with your specific questions.
So if I put it in writing, you can tell me, but you can't tell me this evening? Is that my understanding?
The procedure bylaw states that questions and comments cannot be acknowledged related to this type of application. So, but if you would like to ask questions of staff, then please feel free to do so.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Just one other point, it's not a question. I couldn't even get out of my driveway today because of the traffic. I understand there was actually one of the developers walking around Mulmurray Days, handing out business cards and talking. And there could be 329 residences if this is approved. That could be 700 to 800 more vehicles on our already burdened East Road, never mind what Icona is going to do in the future. So I would really like council to really consider that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's Leslie Hannigan, 1065 Thompson Road. I missed the podium here, so I would hope that next time we can have a podium just to put papers on and stuff. So my question is, first of all, I received a response about to an FOI that I had regarding the Crystal Creek septic, and it answered all my questions, and thank you for that. But in the response, something else kind of struck me, and I didn't realize that Teresa Mickelson, the Anmore South Communications consultant, is apparently being contracted by the village. In late July, Teresa had communicated with Karen Elrick and Carla Shannon regarding the content of the Anmore Advisory newsletter, and it notes that Teresa will write the Anmore Advisory Council update due to its sensitive subject matter. First of all, I thought that was written by the mayor, but regardless, I don't understand why a communications consultant is required. What is sensitive about what was in there, and don't you just write the facts? As well, it stated that Carla had stated that Teresa has helped review and edit the Anmore Advisory Council updates twice in the past year. So was she working for our village while this Icona thing was going on? It also said the Crystal Creek situation article was written by Teresa. Karen wrote a blurb to Teresa regarding the grant awarded for the Community Wildfire Resilience Plan and asked her to edit it and set up a meeting between someone else and her. Teresa wrote the third version of the Facebook article regarding the village's response to the Crystal Creek septic news article. Teresa obviously still manages the village Facebook website because she mentions that she discovered and then hid a post that was in breach of the Facebook policy. This is all this past July. So I'm wondering, first of all, am I correct in what I'm reading? And if I am, why is she writing the Anmore Advisory, managing the Facebook site? And when we have a communications direct consultant and we have an extra assistant to the CAO from 2003, we now have a full-time assistant. Like, is this what's happening, or am I reading this wrong?
Ms. Elrick, do you have?
I'm sorry, what is your exact question? I'm not really sure what you're asking.
Okay, my first question is, are we employing Teresa Mickelson from the village as a consultant?
We don't employ Teresa, but she is a consultant that the village uses, and her budget is included in the budget on a yearly basis and reported out.
So we have a communications consultant or coordinator full-time that works for the village, but we're also sending stuff out to Teresa Mickelson. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and so when Teresa would look at the Anmore Advisory the last 2 times, apparently, she was also supposedly being an independent person in the Icona hold fiasco. Was that also correct?
Through the chair, well, I wouldn't say that she was supposedly being an independent person. Teresa is a professional that is highly accredited and respected for her skills. So,
but she was working.
She has
for
been
both.
working. No, she is contracted by the village and always has been.
So she was contracted also, like was paid by Icona for the Icona thing, but paid by the village for her part with the village at the same time?
She's contracted with the village, and some of the services that were provided whether it be from staff that is underemployed, whether it be from contractors or other resources, were recovered from Icona. And that is one of the costs, as is other costs for staff and non-staff members.
So does she operate the Village of Anmore Facebook website? Because it said that she was changing things that came up that she noticed right away and hid something that was in breach of something else.
Therese is a consultant that we use for communication purposes, and she fulfills several different roles on an as-needed basis. And the specific duties and things that we use her for change from time to time.
So like John, for you, for example, do you think that it's the right thing that we need somebody independent that is also doing the Facebook website, like to pay for that? Like,
First of all, I don't go on Facebook, but second of all, that's an operational thing which Karen is in control of. It has nothing to do with council.
okay, can you tell me her hourly rate?
No,
And why not?
because that's proprietary and that's private information. That's not something that we share. What I can tell you is what our budget is for consulting, and I can tell you what is paid to contractors as a lump sum, but we do not share unit rates.
So if I put a Freedom of Information request out, I would not find, could I get a copy of her invoices with that?
You absolutely may put a Freedom of Information request in if you are seeking information.
Could you send it to me without going through the whole Freedom of Information thing?
No.
Okay, so I'm just concerned about the money because of the $75,000 that we've had to okay for all this Freedom of Information thing. Is it really necessary to have another person that's writing the Anmore advisory and doing the website? And that's, thank you for answering the questions. I
Thanks.
don't know if I agree with that, but thank you.
Okay.
Mark Obaninsky, 1010 Sugar Mountain Way. Just want to circle back on the infill of 1000B Sugar Mountain Way. Thanks, Josh, for pointing out that it is infill, or it's compliant to all the infill. I guess what I want to point out on this property, just for a second, is this infill started, oh, a little more? Okay, sorry. This infill started in 2001.
I'm going to have to excuse myself.
Okay.
Yeah, if you could just wait a minute and that's.
Before infill was infill. It used to be 1 acre properties. The property was subdivided. Originally it was a carriage house. Lawsuit ensued. Anyways, furthermore, I digress. So what I'm asking for now is obviously it's compliant. We can continue with the process through council to get fund or to subdivide the product or subdivide the properties and create the infill. The fee I'm stumbling on because the lift in value was made when I purchased the property. So I don't understand now that there's infill why a lift is now required to pay, because the lift is required for me to pay to sell the property because we tried to sell the property for a year. The only offer we got was significantly below value, subject to the infill being removed. So I'm just questioning the fee for this. So what I'd like to ask council is whatever the fee is, whether it's a $150,000 infill fee, make it fast because this is sinking me and we have to finish
Okay,
this
I'm going to,
soon.
sorry, Mr. Obaninsky, I'm going to defer to Essen, our corporate
This
secretary.
is something that we can't. This is something that we can't entertain regarding the procedure.
Okay, yeah,
bylaw.
we're not able to engage in discussion on this, I'm
Fair
afraid. But
Okay, thanks.
noted, thank you. We can bring the mayor back in.
anybody else? Okay, motion to adjourn, I guess. Move, seconded, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone.